So here's how a barbecue and a beer almost made me hang up my real estate license forever. I'm Janice, and welcome back to my channel. I'm going to teach you all that you need to know to pass the real estate exam. And most of the time, I just do it by telling you freaking stories of stuff that happened out in the battlefield, out in the wild, because that's the easiest way to learn. And stories are fun. So grab your popcorn, put whatever the hell you want in your sippy cup, and buckle up because here's a fun one. This is years ago. And I had a buyer, and this buyer was referred to me by my lender, which is actually pretty odd. It usually goes the other way. We usually refer clients. We're at the top of the food chain, as I like to say. And we usually refer clients to lenders and to home inspectors and to title companies. But my lender referred someone to me. So I was like, yeah, this is really cool. It was a family friend of hers, and they needed to buy a house. It was this young couple. And I'm like, cool, I can do this. So they wanted to go look in a part of town that I had to get in my car and drive to. Now, I know most real estate agents drive on the daily, but I live in a city and I don't really drive that much. I walk, I ride my bike, I take public transportation occasionally, but not that often because I don't like spending money on them. I'll take an Uber. But this time they wanted to go in a part of town that I actually had to get in my freaking car and drive. And it's a big deal for me because I park on the street. And if you've ever had a battle for parking, you know that it's a freaking nightmare sometimes because you come home and you're circling the block 20 times looking for a parking space. So I have all of this in mind before I decide to get in my car. If you remember that episode of Seinfeld with Elaine and the sponges, well, this was like one of those things. Is it sponge worthy? Is it worth taking my car out of this parking space and losing it? And I decided it was to help out a friend and to help these people buy a house and obviously to close a deal. So they were one of those couples that wanted to see every freaking property in their price range. And they were in a market at the time where there was a lot of inventory. So I made up a list and we had to split it over 2 days. That's how many houses they wanted to see. We can get into a story another time about how many houses, too many houses. That's more of a business building thing. But trust me on this one, that I made an executive decision. I'm the executive, and I made a decision for myself that I'm going to show them all these houses because they were pre qualified. They were referred by my friend who's a lender, the lender that I use, and they were ready to buy. So I got in my car and I had snacks and I had water and I had the whole thing. Like I was ready for a full day. So I take them out and I show them every single property on the list, and they are taking copious notes. They're asking really great questions, and they're lovely people, and I like them, and we're having a good time. And at the end of the day, I drop them off. I actually put them in my car, which I don't typically do with people on the rare occasion I have to drive. It's a thing. I just meet people there and usually park and then walk from place to place. But this day, I picked them up, drove them around so we didn't have to park two cars, and that's how we rolled. So I dropped them off and I went home and fought for parking, as one does on a weekend. It was a Saturday. And then on Sunday, I gave up that parking space that I fought my ass off for on Saturday. And I drove back to that part of town and I took them out again. And it was warm. And I took them out all freaking day. And people are outside and they're doing stuff and I'm working and I'm like, oh, but I'm working and I'm doing my thing. And so I'm okay with it until after hours. We were probably out for 4 hours, 5 hours, which is a long time. At the end, they asked me to drop them back off at their house. I'm like, no problem. And their house is one that they're renting, which is why they wanted to buy. They're this lovely young couple, first time home buyers, totally fun. So I dropped them off at their house. And as we roll up, I see a whole slew of people grilling meats, drinking beer, listening to music, tossing a football around, kids in the sprinkler, the whole shindig. It's like a family cookout, barbecue, beer fest, kids running around. Like the only thing missing was one of those bouncy houses, and it was just pure early summer heaven. And so they get out of my car and I'm sweating my balls off. And I know that I have to drive back in traffic to Center City and fight for a parking space. And it's Sunday. And I have to do all of the other things like follow up on work and laundry and dishes and all that crap because my kids are coming back from their dads the next day. And I have to walk the dog and life is lifing. And they get out of the car and literally over her shoulder, the woman is like, "Thank you so much. I'm so glad you showed us all these houses. We now know that we want to stay where we are and buy the house we're renting from my grandmother." Can you see my eye twitching? It's twitching. I can feel it. I almost lost my freaking mind. Now, this would have been solved if I had signed an exclusive buyer agency contract, but I have to admit that way back then, I was not judiciously filling out exclusive buyer agency contracts before I took buyers out. This was probably 20 years ago, and it was my bad. Lesson learned. I did not fill out an exclusive buyer agency contract with them, which meant they could buy a house with someone else and I'm not going to get paid. Meaning they could buy a house with another agent, or they could buy the house that they're living in, or they could knock on a FSBO's door and they could buy that house and I'm not going to get paid. I didn't know that the whole time we were out shopping that they were just comparing to the house that they were renting until the end of day two, when they roll out of the car and go have a beer and I have another hour of nightmare ahead of me. I was so upset. And I'm like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. So I went home and I called the lender, my friend, the one who had referred to me. And lucky for me, she had grown up in a real estate office. Her mother was a broker, and she is the one who had this brilliant idea that saved the day and taught me about a whole entire new income stream. And that is called transaction licensee. It's a thing and it's on your test. And I'm going to explain it to you now so that you'll never forget it because you're going to understand it. Not every brokerage allows it, but you have to know it for the real estate exam. Transaction licensee is non-agent. So here's what this means. Joe and Mary, buyers, decided that they were going to buy their grandma's house. There's no commission being offered, and I had no buyer agency contract signed, which did not bind them to pay me. So basically, I had just wasted 2 days. But Danielle, the loan officer, said to me, you should see who is going to write up the contract for them because they can't do it themselves and they need a transaction licensee. And I was like, holy crap. And I knew what it was, but I didn't really know what it was. And I figured it out by talking to my broker and reading the contract. And here's what happened. I got hired and they just paid me an amount, and the amount is negotiable. So it doesn't matter how much I got paid. You charge what you want to charge. I charged what I wanted to charge, and they agreed to pay me. You can get paid upfront, or you can get paid at settlement, or a combination of both. It's all depending on how you negotiate the business. So we negotiated a fee and signed a transaction licensee contract, which stated I was hired as a licensee to help them with the transaction, meaning help them do the paperwork, writing up the agreement of sale, and directing them and the seller on what documents they needed and steps they needed to complete in order to close on the transaction, such as filling out the seller's disclosure, which is a requirement in Pennsylvania and a lot of other states, and getting a city cert or UNO, whatever you call it in your area, getting inspections if needed be, applying for financing, those type of things. And that's what I did. And transaction licensee is actually pretty freaking cool because I didn't have to negotiate the contract. The two of them did it themselves. The grandma and the couple decided the price. They decided the terms, the closing date. And all I did was have a list of questions that I needed answers to so I could fill them in on the agreement of sale, such as how much is it? When do you want to close? Are you putting an earnest money deposit down? Are you electing inspections? Is there a mortgage contingency clause? And questions like that. But in a regular transaction, when it's full fiduciary, I have to represent them. I have the full fiduciary, old car, remember? Obedience, loyalty, disclosure, confidentiality, accounting, reasonable care. I owe them all of these things. With transaction licensee, all I did was the paperwork, and that takes me like 10 minutes. So it opened up a whole new revenue stream to me, and it made me totally understand not only what transaction licensee is for the exam, but also reminding me that I have it as a tool in my tool belt if I ever want to use it, because that could have ended really badly. I was so bummed out. I felt like an idiot. Like, how did I let this happen? And I wasted all this time. And I was really upset because you get excited and you're going to close a deal and you're going to write up a contract. And then all of a sudden you find out they're buying their grandma's house with a freaking beer in their hand. So when you're studying agency and you're thinking about the different types of agency and the different ways that we can represent clients, just remember me sweating my balls off in my car while they're standing there with a fucking beer in their hand, smiling and waving, how happy they were that they're just going to buy their grandma's house. And now you know what transaction licensee is. Make sure to subscribe to my channel and hit the like button. And let me know in the comments what you would have done when they jumped out of the car and went to get a beer and you had to drive home and fight for parking. I'll see you in the next video.